Hello, welcome to our consideration of the Easter Vigil service. We'll be looking at the Triduum, these 3 days, which is really one liturgy, although it's spread over 3 days. And the high point of this is the Easter Vigil service. We've looked at the Mass of the Lord's Supper, about the institution of Mass of the priesthood, and of being commanded to serve in the manner of Christ himself in his world. We've looked too at Good Friday with its great liturgy of the Word, considering the Passion of Jesus, and the great prayers of intercession that go with it, the veneration of the cross and Holy Communion, and how at the end of that service there's no dismissal because these services run into one another. But the climax of the Sacred Triduum is the Easter Vigil service. It's called by one of our great saints the Mother of all Vigils. It consists of 4 parts. The first part is a liturgy of light, when the people gather preferably outside the church, where an Easter fire is lit and blessed, and from it the great Paschal candle, the Easter candle, is lit, and it's greeted as the light of Christ, Lumen Christi, thanks be to God, Deo gratias, and it's taken into the totally darkened church in procession, and the people following the candle light their own candles only from the flame of the Paschal candle, because what we're doing tonight is celebrating our baptisms, and we are lit up by Christ and only by Christ. And as each candle is lit, the darkness diminishes in the church, and it gives us a very good understanding of the power of the light of Christ in dealing with the darkness of sin and death. And so the procession goes into the church, and 3 times it stops, and that Lumen Christi, the light of Christ, is sung, and the response, thanks be to God, Deo gratias, is sung as well. Then the candle is enthroned in the sanctuary in a place of honour, and is honoured by being incensed. After this, the great Easter hymn, the Exultet, is sung. When this is finished, the people sit down for a very extended liturgy of the Word. Altogether in the celebration of the Easter Vigil there are 9 readings, 7 from the Old Testament, 1 from the New Testament letters, and an appropriate Gospel. Now sometimes people cut down these readings, which I think is a shame, because the Easter Vigil service is not like an anticipatory Mass on Saturday evening. It's nothing like that. It's far longer, and it needs a great commitment to listen to these readings unfolding, which show us so clearly the hugeness of God's love for us. The first of these readings is taken from the book of Genesis, and is the first of the 2 accounts of creation we find in that book. And each of the readings is followed by an appropriate responsorial psalm and a collect from the priest, which sums up the kernel of what we're being taught. These readings, of which there are 7 from the Old Testament, all build up a picture of the love of God for us, beginning, as I say, with that great gift of creation. The third one is of supreme importance, and even if you're cutting down the readings, which I don't think anyone should do, is the story of the deliverance of the Israelites under the leadership of Moses through the Red Sea from the Egyptians. And this is a type or a prefiguring of our deliverance, not from the slavery of Egypt, but from the slavery of sin. Not through the waters of the Red Sea, but through the waters of baptism. Not to go to the land of Canaan, but to the promised land of heaven. It's really, really important, and that reading can't be left out. But as I say, I think all the readings should be read. Each of them is followed, as I say, by an appropriate psalm and by a collect. It takes a long time, but it builds up a very powerful picture of the love of God for us. It goes in, of course, to the Mass. We have the Gloria, where the candles are lit and the bells are rung, if the church has bells, or the smaller bells from the serving point of view, ring during the Gloria. And then we have the collect, and then the lesson from St. Paul as the epistle of the Mass, followed by the appropriate Gospel of Resurrection. After the Gospel, the opportunity for the priest or the presider to preach, to bring together the various strands of this most important night. Then we move on to the liturgy of baptism. if the parish has been preparing catechumens, truly people not yet baptised, who want to be baptised, then this is the great moment that their Lent has been leading to. And where there are appropriate candidates, they are baptised into the family of God, the Church. If there are no persons to be baptised, it could be that there are people who were already Christians who are going to be accepted into the Church with a statement of faith. These are called candidates for conversion. Following that, either the baptism or the acceptance of people into the Church, we have the renewal of baptismal promises by the faithful gathered in the Church. It's a really important part of the fulfilment of Lent, because we've been asked, particularly in Year A, to think of the meaning of baptism and how it affects our lives. Remember those great Sundays we had from John's Gospel, the third Sunday, the Samaritan woman, the fourth Sunday, the man born blind, and the fifth Sunday, the raising of Lazarus. And so people renew with great solemnity the promises that were made at baptism. This is to arm us, if you like, to go through the rest of this great season of Easter, understanding what it means for us in our daily lives. After this, there are the great prayers of intercession, and then Mass proceeds as usual with the liturgy of the Eucharist. So this Triduum comes to its climax with the celebration of the Easter Vigil service. But remember, it's not 3 services, it's 1 service or liturgy spread over 3 days. And this is the total highlight of the Church's life in its calendar. In fact, people say that just as Sunday is the dominant day of the week, then Easter is the dominant day of the Church's year. It's a day of great joy, a great opportunity to reflect and to keep living the commitment we made at our baptism. It's the greatest of all joys, and it's the greatest of all vigils. So I do hope that people won't just cut it short, and that people will come along open to the prompting of God's Spirit to lay a real foundation for the rest of their lives.